Formula One's 2026 regulations are coming, and the sport's own drivers are warning they could wreck racing as we know it. Charles Leclerc called his first simulator run not enjoyable. Max Verstappen issued warnings about power conservation, and Sebastian Vettel drew comparisons to the disastrous 2014 changes that handed Mercedes 8 years of dominance. These regulations amount to the biggest technical overhaul in Formula One history, and the FIA is promising lighter, more competitive racing with sustainability at its core. Drivers who have tested these systems tell a different story, backed up by the engineering data. We're going to examine what's actually changing, why the paddock is divided, and what this means for motorsport's pinnacle series. How Formula One cars produce power is being completely reimagined, and the numbers reveal just how extreme this shift really is. Internal combustion engine output drops from 550 kilowatts down to just 400 kilowatts, which is a 27% reduction in pure engine power. At the same time, the MGU-K electric motor jumps from 120 kilowatts to 350 kilowatts, nearly tripling electric output and creating a 50-50 split between combustion and electric power for the first time in Formula One history. But here's what often gets overlooked. The MGU-H system that has defined hybrid Formula One since 2014 is being eliminated completely, and this system recovered energy from exhaust heat, making the current hybrid systems incredibly efficient. Removing it means the 2026 cars will actually be less energy efficient than current machines, despite all that increased electric power. Two motivations are driving this shift for the FIA. Sustainability and their pledge of carbon neutrality by 2030 comes first, and relevance comes second, as internal combustion engines decline in road cars, while electric vehicles dominate automotive development. These goals make sense on paper, but the engineering reality creates a problem that can't be ignored. Monaco in 2018 shows you how dramatic this power dependency becomes. Daniel Ricciardo's MGU-K failed early in the race, costing him about 20% of total power. Yet through brilliant driving and Monaco's unique characteristics, he still won. Under the 2026 regulations, that victory would be impossible, because losing your hybrid system means losing 50% of your power. You're not limping home anymore. You're done. The power unit changes are only part of what's happening. Formula One cars are being turned into mechanical transformers with systems that automatically adjust based on track position, and that's the FIA's solution to improve racing. Two modes control active aerodynamics. X mode delivers high downforce in corners, while Z mode provides low drag on straights, and both front and rear wings automatically adjust based on track position and speed, with drivers able to manually override the system when needed. 55% drag reduction and 30% downforce reduction were the FIA's original targets, ambitious numbers that looked good on paper. Reality hit in late 2024 when they quietly revised the downforce reduction target to just 15% for performance and safety reasons, which means they had to scale back their own regulations because the original targets were too extreme. The overtaking system marks an even bigger departure from current racing. DRS has been Formula One's solution since 2011, a simple setup where you push a button, the rear wing opens, and top speed increases. The 2026 regulations scrap that system entirely and replace it with a manual override for electrical power deployment. This change reveals a design problem built into the new rules. A car's electric power is designed to taper off at high speeds to save energy on the straights, which means the lead car's electrical boost will diminish to zero as it approaches top speed on a long straight. What the manual override does is essentially provide a tactical fix for this flaw, because if a driver is within a set distance of the car ahead, the system allows them to bypass the normal rules and deploy their full 350 kilowatts of electrical power for a longer period. The FIA claims this will create a tactical chess match where drivers decide whether to use the override early to launch an immediate attack or save it for the main straight. What they're really doing is replacing aerodynamic efficiency and pure racing with battery management tactics. The system allows them to bypass the normal rules and deploy their full 350 kilowatts of electrical power for a longer period. The FIA claims this will create a tactical chess match where drivers decide whether to use the override early to launch an immediate attack or save it for the main straight. What they're really doing is replacing aerodynamic efficiency and pure racing with battery management tactics. When the sport's elite drivers express concern about regulation changes, that's not adaptation anxiety. Red flags about design problems are being raised. Monza simulator testing in 2023 showed Max Verstappen the system's flaw. He described a car that couldn't maintain speed in top gear, requiring flat-out downshifts, and he warned this would create power conservation issues across different circuits. The world's best driver is being told to drop gears while at full throttle, something that would destroy a real gearbox through mechanical abuse. Carlos Sainz's assessment after simulator testing described the 2026 cars as very complicated and occupying a lot of brain space while driving. He compared it to the shock drivers experienced transitioning from V8s to hybrids in 2014, a comparison that carries weight given how disruptive that change proved to be. Charles Leclerc admitted the 2026 car concept was not enjoyable and very, very different from anything drivers are used to, specifically mentioning concerns about racing muscle memory and the instinctive responses developed over years of competition. The key difference from 2014 is this. Hybrid introduction at least maintained the basic character of Formula One racing, but the 2026 changes transform drivers from racers into energy management specialists. Alexander Albon's comparison to Formula E tells you everything you need to know. Drivers will need to manipulate races through energy deployment strategies, similar to how Formula E drivers manage their battery usage, and Formula E is a series known for artificial racing aids and energy conservation being held up as the model for Formula One's future. Sebastian Vettel, who generally supports sustainability initiatives, warned that parts of the 2026 regulations don't make sense. His comparison to the problematic 2014 changes carries weight because those regulations created years of Mercedes dominance that made the championship predictable. Driving a Formula One car gains an entirely new dimension through the energy recovery demands. 2 megajoules per lap through braking is what current cars recover, but the 2026 regulations mandate 8.5 megajoules, more than quadruple the energy recovery. Cars rely exclusively on kinetic energy from braking and deceleration, without the MGU-H system, which means drivers will need to completely reimagine their approach to corners and braking zones. Energy recovery becomes as important as lap time, and racing strategy gets changed at a foundational level. The FIA recognized the power delivery problems this creates and introduced a power ramp-down system, which is a direct admission that their power unit concept has issues. Electric power is forced to fade at a controlled rate instead of disappearing instantly, and on high-demand tracks with long straights like Spa, the power fades at 50 kilowatts per second, while on other circuits it drops at 100 kilowatts per second. This isn't a performance enhancement. A safety net is what it really amounts to, giving drivers a longer, more predictable warning before their electrical power completely vanishes and preventing a sudden and dangerous loss of speed. The fundamental issue doesn't get solved, though. System failure just becomes more manageable. Adrian Newey, Formula One's greatest aerodynamicist, summed up the broader impact by saying these changes will alter the driving rhythm that has defined Formula One for decades. When the man who designed championship-winning cars for 3 different teams says the driving rhythm is changing, that's not adaptation. That's transformation. Formula One history's most expensive rule change is what the 2026 regulations represent, and the FIA knows it. $135 million to $215 million is how much the budget cap is being increased for 2026, a massive 59% increase to offset new regulations and previously excluded items. Think about what that admission means. Budget caps were introduced by the FIA to level the playing field and control costs, and now they're abandoning their own financial discipline because the 2026 regulations are too expensive to fit within reasonable limits. Unprecedented development costs face teams for new hybrid power unit development, active aerodynamic systems, and energy management integration. The complexity means development costs will be astronomical, with Audi's entry as a works team further intensifying financial pressure on existing competitors. The sustainability argument becomes complicated right here. Environmental claims are how the FIA justifies this financial explosion. And yes, 2026 will introduce 100% sustainable fuels, which is genuinely positive for the billion combustion cars still on roads globally. But let's examine the full picture. Lithium mining for battery cells is required for these new hybrid systems, along with rare earth elements for electric motors, complex manufacturing processes, global shipping of components, and frequent replacement due to increased complexity. 20 cars and hundreds of personnel continue flying to 24 races worldwide in Formula One. A microscopic fraction of global emissions is what the actual racing represents. Yet the sport is undergoing a massive technical transformation to appear environmentally conscious, and the FIA doesn't publish calculations on the carbon footprint of manufacturing, transporting, and disposing of these complex electric components. Something harder to quantify but equally important lies beyond the technical and financial concerns. Formula One's sensory identity is being systematically altered. Screaming V10s of 2005 shifted to V8s, and then to V6 turbos in 2014, which already changed the sport's signature sound. The initial move to the V6 turbos dropped sound levels by about 11 decibels, and because the decibel scale is logarithmic, that felt like much more than the numbers suggest. The turbos muffled the high-pitched shriek and altered the acoustic character of the cars completely. 2026 regulations with their 50-50 electric power split will reduce the remaining combustion engine noise significantly again. 400 kilowatts from the internal combustion engine and silent power delivery from electric motors means the 2026 cars will be noticeably quieter during the moments that matter most in racing. Energy recovery demands will even change how corners look and sound. Drivers may need to rev engines in low gears mid-corner, not to accelerate, but to generate electrical energy through resistance, which means you could hear cars working hard through Monaco's hairpin, not because they're fighting for position, but because they're recharging batteries. Formula One's appeal has always gone beyond pure competition. 20 cars at full throttle produce a sound, a mechanical symphony of precision engineering pushed to its limits, and these elements create emotional connections that no amount of sustainable fuel can replace. Barcelona private testing began this January, which will be followed by official sessions in Bahrain and Spain in February. How prepared teams are for this level of integration is what these sessions will reveal. Technical specifications, driver feedback, and historical precedent point to several probable outcomes. Significant mechanical failures will likely hit the first 5 races of 2026 as teams struggle with the complexity of new hybrid systems, active aerodynamics, and energy management. Driver adaptation will be challenging. Racing muscle memory concerns from Charles Leclerc and complexity warnings from Carlos Sainz suggest that some current drivers may struggle with the transition more than others. One engine manufacturer will likely achieve early superiority given the complexity of the new power units, similar to Mercedes in 2014. Early development advantages in systems this complex are nearly impossible for rivals to overcome quickly, potentially creating a competitive imbalance lasting multiple seasons. Lewis Hamilton's response to the regulations was diplomatically positive, calling the changes fascinating. But his emphasis on uncertainty, saying it could go either way, it could be good, it could be not so good, reveals the deep doubts even experienced drivers feel about this direction. The most extreme transformation in Formula One's 75-year history is what the 2026 regulations represent. Sustainability goals and manufacturer relevance have been prioritized by the FIA, but the cost is significant. Driver concerns, technical complexity, and financial burdens all point to challenges ahead. This isn't about resisting change. Formula One has always evolved, but evolution should enhance what makes the sport special rather than alter its character at a foundational level. The question isn't whether Formula One can implement these regulations, because teams will adapt since they always do. Whether Formula One in 2026 will still feel like Formula One or become something else entirely in pursuit of goals that may not align with what makes the sport compelling is the real question. Honest conversations about these trade-offs are what the drivers who have tested these systems, the engineers who must design them, and the fans who support the sport all deserve. The alarm bells are ringing. Whether the FIA will listen remains to be seen. What aspect of the 2026 regulations concerns you most? And do you think the sustainability goals justify the changes to racing? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you want more in-depth analysis of Formula One's technical evolution, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Thank you for watching.